It's up for grabs now!
Magic ball from Bergkamp to Patrick Vieira!
Oh, would you believe it? Oh, right, what a way to get it!
Fabulous solo goal by Youri.
Good evening and welcome to the Arsenal Lounge. Sorry I'm a bit late. I had someone viewing the house and they've asked me what the price is and it's a done deal. He's left and that's the end of that. So sorry I kept you guys waiting. Those of you who know what that means know. But look, we've been looking to get this show done for a little while and we've finally got it together. I mean, one thing that's come out of all of this, I was on Tom's show recently and a few other things, is what it's done is it's made me look at things as fans, and I love the fact that we can debate and not argue with each other. That's what football's about, isn't it? The old school. We can not agree with each other, but still be friends at the end of the day. And still at kickoff, we still want the same thing. And this is what I'm loving right now. We can show others that we can debate and still get on. And that's what we're doing. And today, I've got some esteemed guests with us. Firstly, I'll just touch on the man with the shiny hair up there on my left. Shaheen, how you doing, bro? You good?
I'm very good, man. I'm very good. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, Lev. Really, I'm grateful. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. And
I just
good to finally have you on, Shaheen.
Thank you. I want to ask Mike something. A little birdie has told me you're having sleepless nights when you're thinking about, America facing Iran in a World Cup. What's that all about, Mike?
It's the group of death. I got two horses in that fight, and there's no guarantee that either one or both are going to get through. So trust me.
You know, Iran will beat America. You know this. I'm happy to have a wager on this live.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, Iran is not a pushover in football or in anything. So I'm not not looking forward to that group stage. I can hopefully breathe when it's all over. But my hopes of England and USA going through are probably about as likely as your chat taking my side or seeing or actually listening to what I'm actually saying today during this chat. But
listen,
we root for it anyway.
I'm sure everyone will be nice to you in here. This is what we want. We want everyone to be respectful.
I don't need people to be nice to me. I just need people to actually listen to what I'm saying and not
take
it the wrong way.
Our followers, the people who sub to our channel, they tend to be very they listen and they don't,
they chastise you. No, buddy.
Yeah, you'll be all right. You'll be all right, Mike.
No, you'll be
all right. As you can see, I'm a big boy. I can take it.
Yeah.
So as I was doing the introductions, Shaheen's just decided to go wherever he wants with this show, start talking about Iran and all that sort of stuff. So he's done the intro for Mike. Mike, how you doing? You good, bro? Other than that, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, doing fine. Thanks for having me on.
Good. And finally, we have Mo. No sort of introductions really required. But Mo, how are you doing today? I heard you've been doing a lot of groundwork for this.
Oh, do you know what? It's a very, very tough task to talk bad about Saint Stan Kroenke and his meritocracy-based appointment of his wonderful son Josh. So I've really had to dig deep to find something to criticize him with. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, this is what we wanted to do today. We wanted to get under the surface and find out what's really been going on since the Kroenkes took over. Are we being over sort of analytical and blaming them for everything? Are we being sort of unjustified with the way we feel about them, or is it justified? That's what we're looking to get into today. I mean, looking at the events in the transfer window, that sort of thing, it's going to be very interesting what these guys come out with, and I've done a bit of research myself. So I mean, just to lay down the groundwork before you guys get into it, the Kroenkes sort of took over. They come into the scene sort of 2007, 2008, if I'm right. Please, if I'm wrong, correct me. But this is the interesting things I found out. I didn't know this. ITV had 9.9% shares. Granada, which was a subsidiary of ITV at the time, had 9.9% shares. And we had the relationship with Colorado Rapids at the time. We'd already built those relationships. And that's how the Kroenkes got into Arsenal. They purchased the 9.9 shares off ITV. They got in that way, and then over the years, slowly but surely, they've been purchasing shares. They bought Fisman's shares. They bought Lady what's her name again?
Bracewell Smith.
Yeah, that's it. Bracewell Smith shares
that was the one that tipped it in.
That
his
was the
favor.
killer move.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was the killer move. So look,
remember that.
Usmanov was in the wings waiting. There's been a lot of skullduggery in the background. We're not going to get into all of that too much, but as it stands right now, there's been a lot of changes since the Cronkies did take over. Officially 2018, there were 4 owners. But since, it's been a torrid time up until those points. Wenger was there, he left. Unai Emery's come in, left. Arteta's been in. There's been changes at board level as well, with Cheswick stepping down, and then Gazides coming in as chief exec, and then that's gone. And then Ralph Saneni's come and gone. So there's been a lot of turmoil in amongst all of this, and a lot of it, obviously, the fans have looked at the Cronkies and transfer dealings, and they blame silent Stan up to a point. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to find out, is it justified or is it not? So, I mean, who should we start with here? I mean, Mike, do you want to sort of come forward with what you want to sort of
opening
statements? Yeah, opening statements. I feel like the Amber Heard trial here with Johnny Depp. So, opening statement, Magic Mike, come to the stand, please.
Opening statements. Listen very carefully to me, please. I am no fan of the Cronkies. Okay, I don't defend the Cronkies at all. What I defend against are people throwing the baby out with the bathwater, in the sense of because they are so easy to hate, because they have done so many things wrong with our football club, people attach things to them or attribute things to them that aren't true. So I'm not here to defend Stan Kroenke. I'm not here to defend Josh Kroenke or KSE. There are so many different reasons to dislike these guys. First, my daughter goes to university in Columbia, Missouri, where Stan Kroenke was born, where Josh Kroenke went to university, and about an hour and a half drive from St. Louis, Missouri, where we travel through to get there. You think that you hate Stan Kroenke? Try being from St. Louis, where you had your American football team ripped away.
Yeah, he moved the Rams, didn't he?
With a false promise. He brought the team, he bought into the team like he did with Arsenal, 10, 15, 20% to move the team from Los Angeles to St. Louis in the 80s, and then swore he would never move them out, and pulled the team out from under the city in, I forget when it was, probably about 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, I mean, he's not a man of his word. And they don't do business the right way. And he's even promised to pay the NFL's legal bills to the city of St. Louis, and has gone back on that. So, that's me coming out and saying that. I don't need to be convinced that he's a bad guy.
Okay.
In 2017, he launched a streaming channel, which included, murdering elephants, lions, and other wild game. And
yeah, that's right.
And within a week of people complaining about it, he took that content down. But what the hell is that all about? When it comes to Arsenal, they've sucked a tremendous amount of the Arsenal way out of this club, with absentee ownership, with not grasping that just because you have football people in charge like Arsene Wenger and Ivan Gazidis, that you can't just leave the club completely alone and running on its own. And that has cost us dearly with the rot that set in with the club. And I wouldn't say that there's any Arsenal supporters who have been following this club since before they took over that feels, that's giving their money and their time and their love to this club, that feels more close to the club now than they did in 2006, 2007, before he started buying shares. So, don't mistake my discussion and the things that I'm talking about specifically financially with Mo. And we may have a difference of opinion, but we may also have more agreements in this than you think that we will. As as a Yank defending a Yank, especially, or a guy defending Stan Kroenke as being some sort of saint. He isn't. And I would much prefer someone else run our club, someone who, isn't an Owen Oyston of the world, or a Mike Ashley of the world, or a Malcolm Glazer of the world. Much rather have somebody else run the club. But sometimes the devil is better than the devil you don't.
So, Mike, just to clarify before you go any further, for the guys in the chat and all of that. So, obviously, you've made it clear that you're not 100% a fan of the Cronkies. And just to let everyone else know, I'm going into this with an open mind. I just want to know what's going on. I'm going to be honest. I'm a layman. I look at the game more so than the numbers, etc. So this is why we wanted you guys to do this. So just clarify then, obviously you're not a great fan of the Cronkies, but what is it you feel that is unjust in the sense of the way the fans feel about the Cronkies? I mean, look, they're obviously in America. They're doing bits at the moment. To be honest, what are their teams called? The Colorado, is it Colorado Avalanche
and
have won
the
Stanley
Rams.
Cup, and then the Mammoths have won the NLL as well, ice hockey. This is right. So and the Rams have won as well. So they're obviously doing bits in America. We as fans look at that and go, well, why? This is the jewel in the crown. Might be a bit arrogant for us to feel that way, but what is it you want to get across to us that you feel we're missing then?
Well, that's one component. That's one myth. I think there's a lot of myths about the way money is spent and the interest that they have in certain clubs versus ours. And one myth is that they're spending money and they're putting focus into winning in the States, and they're not doing it at Arsenal. Sports in the States are just diametrically different. And I'm sorry, Mo, for taking so much time.
No, go for it, man.
The sports that they participate in the United States are socialized sports, essentially, where there is a built-in guaranteed profit for an owner of a sports team. That's why it's so desirable to be an owner of a sports team. In the NFL and the NHL, it's complete revenue sharing. So they know exactly every year. I'll use the Rams as an example. They know every year that they're going to get $443 million from the TV rights and the national money that's brought in by the NFL. The Premier League does it similarly with the TV rights, except they do it based on merit, which I think makes sense. But the NFL doesn't. You could finish 30. You could be the 32nd team out of 32. No fear of relegation. You get the same TV money, the same ticket money as every other team in the league. So there's a guaranteed income, and then there's a guaranteed maximum outflow on players. So what the Rams have done and what the Avalanche have done is intelligent management of their playing staff, intelligent contract renegotiations, because in the NFL, contracts are not guaranteed. So you can sign somebody to a $250 million contract for 8 years, and you're not likely to be paying them for the final 4 or 5 years of that contract.
Okay.
So it's a completely different situation where they know they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars every year, no matter how they set up their team. It becomes about strategy and putting all the puzzle pieces together at the right time in the right way. And it's not Stan and Josh that are doing that. It's Joe Sakic with the Avalanche, who's an all-time legend for them, who's been a great general manager. He's the ADO of the team, and he's been brilliant. And the same with the guy at the Rams. They brought in people who, fortunately for them, after making some mistakes, know what the hell they're doing, and they've reaped the rewards on that. That doesn't mean he cares more about those teams or he invests more money in. He invests money in real estate in LA, which has nothing to do with the ability for their team to win. So if we want Stan Kroenke to invest in a real estate deal, to add a third level to the Emirates that is incredibly posh and allows corporate sponsors to come in and give him a lot more money in his pockets that he can't spend on players, then let's protest for Stan Kroenke to do that, because that's the correlation to the stadium in the Rams.
So
and we can talk about investment in Arsenal next.
So are you suggesting then, basically, to get to the crux of what you're saying, is are you potentially suggesting that although he's here and he's the owner of the club, it's not him that's been doing what's been doing? He does, wherever he goes, he does the same thing. He relies on people within the clubs to have their strategy and come to him and say, look, we want this amount of money or we want that amount of money. So you're basically saying that's not all he's doing. Is that right in where I'm going with this?
His crime with Arsenal is that and I'll be the first to say this. He's trying to he wants Arsenal to operate like his American sports franchises, and it's not a sports franchise. Okay. It's not it's one where you can take a loss, which you're not going to get in America. You can decide to spend more money and take a bigger loss to attempt to get more competitive on the pitch, which carries no guarantees. And so he has left Arsenal in the hands of what he considers to be the best football people he can find. Now, he's been very wrong about that.
That's down to him too, though, no?
Oh, absolutely. The buck stops at the top. I'm not,
Okay.
Again,
Well, let's hold it there for a minute, Mike.
yeah,
Hold it there for a minute. So what I wanted to do is get you to sort of lay down a little bit of how you feel about things first.
Yeah.
We'll go to Mo, see what he feels about things and obviously what he's heard so far. And then let's get into the details because I'm sure people here, they want to hear details. So Mo, you've heard kind of Mike's angle very quickly. AK Koig, come on, you Gunners, £5. Thank you for your help and your support. Feels like fans are not really getting into details of how the club is being managed. He says it's an incredible complex process. We're on the right path 100%. Anyway, Mo.
Well, I feel like Mike's done a great job of communicating a lot of how I feel, to be honest with you.
Okay.
You know, I think it's very telling that even as this conversation progresses and Mike will try and perhaps articulate how Stan isn't as bad as what we think, even someone that's trying to talk in his favour cannot ignore the clear and obvious flaws and wrongdoings of the man. The fact that these wrongdoings and flaws occur is exactly why I'm not a fan of him, why I'm fed up of him, and why I feel like if Arsenal achieve anything, it will be in spite of him, not as a result of him being around the club. Now, if you want to just take a very, very high level view of what Arsenal have done since Stan Kroenke's involvement at the club, the more he's been involved, the more his shareholding has increased, the more Arsenal have dropped off. Go by league position, and you will see that. Prior to him, we were a real force. There was a know-how, a je ne sais quoi about Arsenal that we possess this way of doing things under David Dein, who had what they said was the biggest contacts book in football. He was the vice chair of the FA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And now what a wonderful unfair advantage for Arsenal to have. So we went from someone who was super involved, not just with Arsenal, but in the fabric of English football, that knew everyone, knew how to do things, pulled off the Sol Campbell deal. Incredible achievement to go and do that. So difficult to pull off. And you go for someone like that who's so involved to someone who's not involved at all, turns up like the most casual fan on the showpiece occasion, an FA Cup final sort of thing. And when you look at when he first started acquiring shares, Arsenal dropped that level lower from first and second place finishes to sort of third, fourth, fifth place finishes. And as his shareholdings increased, we've seen it drop and drop and drop. And now here we are, last 4 seasons, where he's actually, become the owner, the real owner, 5th, 8th, 5th. I think Arsenal's decline has mirrored him. And I think Arsene Wenger, who has done so much for this club, has almost taken a lot of the brunt of the changing face of Arsenal Football Club as a result of Stan Kroenke. And he's been the dartboard that the failure of the club and the lacking of standards, the decline of the standards of the club, he's been the dartboard to take the criticism of that. Whilst in reality, I think that culture gets set from the top, and Stan Kroenke is responsible for that.
Oh, there you go. So, I mean, how do you feel about the fact, obviously, Mike's tried to give us some context behind how it works in America and obviously the difficulties he may have had coming over here, maybe adjusting and then obviously trusting people within our game, thinking, look, these guys are the ones for us. And he's rightfully admitted, he hasn't really got it right since his tenure there. Is there any sort of, can we forgive them a little bit for the fact that they've had to come in and understand the game? Or do you feel that, well, you've purchased the club, you was around long enough, maybe you should have thought of that before you took over?
Zero forgiveness. Look, this Stan Kroenke acts like he's as if this is, look, Arsenal is an absolute institution. It's a huge, huge part of English football and world football. We are an absolute institution of the game, especially in this country. He has rocked up like he's selling carpets out the back of a van, getting his son to do the job, as if it's like some cowboy little affair. Now, that really, really bothers me. This sport is about meritocracy, not about nepotism. And what he has gone and done by, putting his son in that position of prominence and influence really, really annoys me, because I think it completely disrespects what Arsenal are as a proper world-leading institution in this industry. If when you talk about the fact that he trusted people and put certain people into certain positions, I would buy that had he run a process where he had actually attempted to go and recruit the best people for the job. But are we really led to believe that he did that? And out of all the billions of men and women walking this planet, the person who came out on top in that really robust, honest, transparent, meritocracy-based selection process happened to be his son? Are we really claiming that? It's an absolute nonsense. And it makes a mockery of such a great institution like Arsenal Football Club that he's given the gig to his little boy. He's Donald Trump in disguise, getting his kids in the White House. And it's an absolute disgrace. It's a joke. I would love an audience with Josh Kroenke and actually to look him in the eye and ask him, isn't he embarrassed to just ride on the coattails of daddy's success and daddy's wealth and take the role that someone should have got based on experience, know-how, and a track record?
Well, Mo, as someone who's had an audience with Josh Kroenke, I can tell you that he's either, and he might be, the best actor in the entire world, or he cares about this football club and is going to continue to try to fix it until they get it right. He knows his limitations.
I don't care.
Well, can I ask a question? I'm gonna involve Shaheen here.
Go ahead, Mike.
What is the topic? What is the topic of this debate? Because I just want to make sure we're discussing the same things.
Right.
I was led to believe that this was a debate about whether Kroenke financially supports the team.
Yes,
about what's going on the last
years.
It's
about, I know what you're talking about with regards to some comments in a chat.
Well, it's not even the chat. It's that it seems to be about whether Stan Kroenke and his family are right and good for Arsenal.
No, Mike.
We're not going to have as big of a disagreement about that.
No, what we wanted to do is put some context behind it first before we get into the numbers. So I mean, that's what we want to do. We want to find out. The whole point of this show is we want to find out just what the Concretes have put into the club. Because look, let's get to the crux of it. The fact of the matter is, a lot of fans, including myself, will shout at the TV, will shout at the Concretes, spend the money. Or the other perception is they're here to milk the club of its money, right? And what we're trying to get to the crux of is, well, is it us just being overly passionate because we dislike them? And it's easy to dislike them because of many things that have been mentioned. Are we being unfair? Have they actually come in and helped? I mean, some of the stories says that the Partey deal, for example, would never have happened unless they gave us a cash injection, right? So I just want to know, and like the fans, we want to know what's going on. So you've got some details. Give it to us, Mike. I mean, that's what we want.
As I said in the intro, I think it's a case. I'm trying to look at this objectively, and it's difficult when you're looking at something so emotionally entwined. I mean, I've been supporting this club for over 30 years.
Yeah,
and love the club. It dominates my life to the extent of not being good for my family life at times. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So I am as invested in this club as anybody could be. Not more, but as invested as anyone could be.
Okay.
And yet I try, especially when things are going wrong, I try to be as objective as I can and not just throw the baby out of the bathwater, as it were, which is essentially just blaming them for every single thing that goes wrong, even when some of them are either as a result of trying to fix things, which is what the last 2 or 3 years has been about, and in fact under the most difficult of circumstances where we have COVID, we have a disaster of a dressing room and a wage structure and a player mentality to continue to try to get it right. If Kroenke was trying to milk money out of the club, and I'm sure it'll get brought up, his 1 and possibly and probably 2 years of taking a consultancy fee of £3 million. That was a huge mistake. There's no question about it.
When did they do this? Can you let us know? Because I haven't been following.
It was when they were majority but not complete owners in the club.
Okay.
And doing that was essentially a way. I mean, clubs pay dividends. Very few. Manchester United notoriously is the one that pays dividends, which is just basically a money grab for the Glazers to get money back while they owe so much to banks. Virtually no other club does that. This was kind of a pseudo dividend that didn't have to go in proportional manner to Usmanov because it was considered a consulting fee. That was a mistake. It was 3, maybe 6 million pounds total.
Okay.
And I think he learned from that, but I'm not going to defend them doing that. Although Daniel Levy makes 2.5 million pounds every single year for sitting on the board of Spurs, even though he owns 30% of the controlling entity of Spurs. So, I mean, why does he need to get paid? But I'm not going to do whataboutism and say, well, one's better, one's worse. But the point is, if he really wanted to milk money out of the club, why would they still be owning the club when they could have essentially trebled their investment on the club by selling it in the last 6 to 12 months after losing 180 million pounds over the last 4 years combined and heading towards another loss this season because of the lack of European football? Why do they want to fix this so badly if all they want is to have continued what they were doing, pulling money out of the club, or which they never did, beyond that 6 million pounds? Why wouldn't they be doing what the Glazers are doing and absolutely destroying their club from within? That's just curious to me, because they had an out. They had a way of taking something that cost them about 16,000 a share and getting 40,000 pounds a share for it and just being done with this whole thing. So, I don't see the greed in doing that.
Okay. All right. Does someone want to come in on that question? Mo, you heard? No, that's a pretty valid point.
Chelsea got part of a sale recently, and there were a lot of takers. A lot of people came to try and buy that club. Why do you think they're doing that? Why are these people looking to buy Chelsea? Why have Saudi, for example, other than the sports washing element, come to take over Newcastle? Why is owning a Premier League football club something that billionaires want to do? There's more billionaires on the planet, or there's more multi-billionaires on the planet than there are Premier League clubs. And we've seen that this is quite a popular thing for billionaires to do. These billionaires aren't idiots. They see that there's money to be made. So what Mike is asking there with Stan Kroenke, there's 2 factors to it. There's the annual profits that you might be making, and then there's the capital appreciation. So let's say Arsenal's a house and you're a landlord. You might be renting it out every single year, but the real win for you might be that you think that house price is going to go up over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, and that's where your real money is going to come from. Now, when you look at the share price, the average share price that Kroenke paid for Arsenal versus what he could get now, there's been a huge, huge uplift, and that absolutely dwarfs the annual profits or the annual losses that are going on. Now, I personally think when you see how much demand there is to buy a Premier League club when one becomes up for sale, there's an increase in valuations still to come. We clearly saw how the Kroenkes were supportive of the ridiculous Super League idea, which would have absolutely blown football club values out of the water compared to where they are right now. One of the most common valuation methods for any organization is you look at earnings. You look at the current earnings and you apply a multiplier to them to come to a valuation to determine what you should be paying for an organization. If the Super League had gone ahead, we would have been earning a hell of a lot more, and therefore the club would have been valued a hell of a lot more. Now, what Mike poses there is a question about the unknown. We don't know why they haven't sold. Equally, we don't know whether they would have sold if they had managed to get Arsenal into part of a Super League. That is my one most worrying thing about the Kroenkes. No one has a clue about their exit strategy. No one's got a clue.
And now that sorry to interrupt, Mo, but obviously now that Mike's explained how it works in American sport, it kind of makes even more sense why Kroenkes would be up for a Super League, because it's guaranteed money, no threat of relegation. It's just constant money going in that way, right?
Yeah, and that's an absolute insult to what is English
the integrity
football
of our
culture.
sport. Yeah.
It is, and again, that goes to are they trying to make a lot of money out of this club? Yeah. So are other billionaires, per what you just said. I mean, there's money to be made, and by lifting the entire competitive league that you're in, whether it's the Premier League or a Super League, you're going to make the club more valuable. But what you're also going to do, if your fans revolt against you and the Super League idea dies, you're also going to potentially jeopardize the valuation of your team. Team values can go down. There are two main things that can cause that to go down in the future. One is becoming a team that regularly finishes outside of Europe, which can happen to clubs. It can happen when you start making incredibly poor decisions on wages, on other investments. You make bad coaching decisions. And while I'm not comparing Arsenal to other clubs, because there's someone in the chat that's just been waiting for me to do this, you've seen some teams that have absolutely lost their maybe not top four glory, but have gone from regularly being just outside the top four to being relegation threatened every year and are saddled with massive debt. And yes, I will use Everton as an example of that. Aston Villa as another example of that. So you can slide into that situation. The other thing that can happen is that at some point in time, I have no doubt, although I'm constantly surprised that it doesn't happen, that TV money is going to have a reversal. It's going to level off at some point. And when TV money levels off, wages will level off, competitive ability for certain teams will level off, and the valuation of teams will come down as a result, because the TV money ultimately for the top 6 teams, TV money and commercial money is everything. And when those things either level off or start going down, the drivers for your valuation level off or start going down. So, is Arsenal at an absolute high of what it could ever possibly be worth? And should they be thinking about selling the club because they can get the most they can? Maybe not, but it's not a guarantee that over the next 5 or 10 years that Arsenal is going to go from being a 2.5 to 3 billion pound team to a 6 billion pound team. And again, in the meantime, they are covering losses for Arsenal over the last few years with money from their own pocket. That's
not the case.
Well,
it's not money
All
from
right,
their own pocket.
let's clarify a few things first. So a couple of people in the chats were saying, for example, the Kroenkes paid off the stadium debts. Is this true? This is what we look. I'm a layman. I'm not like you guys, a numbers guy, and I'm sure a lot of people here as well. So, Shaheen, if there's anything you want to ask at any point, bro, please do. Wait.
It's a very interesting discussion at this point, and I'm very interested to see. And I'm sure Mike will come to this, but I want to see what is good about Kroenkes and Arsenal, and I'm sure you will come to it, because surely there would be something in your view that it's been good with them being the owners of Arsenal. And if there's nothing, then I'm sure you.
Well, what's good about them being the owners of Arsenal? That they're the devil that we know, and that they are attempting to get us back to where they want us to be, which is constantly competing for the title and for European Championship.
I'll disagree with you on that, Mike, but I'm going to let you and Mo discuss the financial side of it, and I'll come to this after. That why I disagree with you. So, Mo.
Well, and let me also say one more thing before handing it to Mo. There are 2 teams in the Premier League historically, and it may now be down to a different 2 that do not treat their clubs like a business whatsoever. Okay, Manchester City and Chelsea, and possibly now Manchester City and Newcastle. We'll see over the next few years. Those clubs, if Chelsea was built off of an owner who could not care less about giving billions of dollars to essentially nothing. I mean, he had no chance of getting that money back, and didn't care about it because he didn't. I mean, the way he came into that money was off the backs of Russian citizens. But I'm going to try not to get into the moralities of it, but just the logistics of it, and say that he lent the team almost £2 billion, and had things not gone the way they did with Russia and Ukraine and his frozen assets, when he either died or pulled out of that squad, I'm sorry, but Chelsea was headed for a major fall. So again, what's worth it? Do you leverage 20 years of glory for what comes afterwards? I'm sure some gooners might do that. Manchester City's a different story. They're the only, they've been smart, and they've cheated significantly and gotten away with it by whatever kind of buy-off they did of UEFA and of the CAS over the last 9 years. But they bought at a time where they could put £1 billion into the club in loans, recapitalize it into equity in 2013, right as financial fair play was going into place, and they spent the money well. They didn't go the let's just throw money at top names. They actually built a good roster with good coaches, even though they kind of switched around for a while until they found Pep. So they overloaded and they beat financial fair play. Why didn't we do that during the same years? Because Kroenke owned 29.9% of the team and then 67% of the team, not 100% of the team, and we were paying off a new stadium. So that wasn't the time frame. Once FFP took over, then they just started cheating with commercial revenues, funneling money through sham commercial revenues. The Der Spiegel leaks they're not great how the information came out, but it doesn't absolve what actually happened with Manchester City. So they're allowed to cheat. They're allowed to spend money. They don't care about losses. They're going to win the Premier League 4 out of every 5 seasons. And I'm sorry, but we're just going to have to kind of get used to that, because until they're stopped, there are 2 different games of football being played. And so, when I look at where we should be and what the Kroenke should and shouldn't be doing, I'm not comparing them to Chelsea of the past and to Manchester City. I'm comparing them to Liverpool and Spurs and United, in the sense that these are businesses that are at least attempting to be run somewhat like businesses. And I know it sucks to call Arsenal a business, but that's ultimately what they are to Stan Kroenke, and we're not going to change that.
Well, what I'm trying to establish, Mike, and Mo, you can help as well, is what exactly have the Kroenkes put in them? That's what I think everyone wants to know, because there's people saying paid off the debts, paid off the... Go on.
Yeah, go on. I was just going to say, we can start with the debate that have they actually paid off the stadium?
Yeah, start with that. So have they paid off the stadium? Did they come in and wipe off Arsenal's debts from the stadium?
No, they haven't. What they have done, and I'll put it into really, really simple terms. Lev, let's say you owe Shaheen money. You owe him £100, and he says to you, every year you owe me the £100, I'm going to charge you 20% interest. So you owe him £20 interest on top of the 100 every year. And I come to you and I say, look, do you know what? I'll take that debt from you. Yeah, so I'll pay Shaheen his £100. So now you owe me the £100, but I'm just going to charge you 10% interest. That's what they've done. They've refinanced it.
Mo, what did they spend?
And it was done by
what was the original debt taken out to do, though, then? Because when you refinance debt, you're essentially assuming the payback of that debt. So it isn't just relevant that you've replaced one debt with another. It's relevant that you've essentially taken on the debt for whatever that money was originally borrowed for in the first place. So if you, what was your example again? If you lent, who owed money to who? I mean,
whoever. Mr. A owes Mr. B money. Mr. C says, you can owe it to me instead.
Well, except it's not, because it's not Mr. C coming in separately. It's Mr. C is Mr. A. So if the Kroenkes borrowed, and the Kroenkes didn't, they didn't build the stadium, by the way, but if the Kroenkes borrowed £200 million to pay for stadium debt, or to buy players, or to do a stadium expansion, or any of these things, or to build 29 trophies of Arsene Wenger, if they borrowed from a bank £200 million to do that, that was using external financing to accomplish something that cash flows couldn't handle by themselves. So when they refinance that loan and take it back under their own wing and say, we're going to have Arsenal owe this money to us instead of to the bank, we're going to charge a lower interest rate. Now, Mo, we've talked about this before. You're under the impression that they're charging a lower interest rate, but you don't know whether that interest rate is, what that interest rate is. I'm under the impression that if it's not just lower, it might be zero.
It's not.
I don't know that yet. You don't know that.
It's not. No. It's not zero, because I know this refinancing was done by Deutsche Bank, and I know the interest it was done a few years ago.
The £200 million that they've put in, £202 million that
it was 500.
Well, that's not what we're talking about. That's refinancing external debt to external debt. The money I'm talking about is 202 million pounds that's on the books as owner debt. And the 202 million pounds came from 15 million pounds of owner debt put in a couple years ago, and then 187 million pounds put in about 2020-21 to refinance existing debt. But when you refinance that existing debt, KSE is now saying we are responsible personally for whatever that debt was originally used to do. So it's not, it's absolutely putting money in from their own pockets, because
absolutely not. It's such a manipulation of what's happened to say that, because what they're doing is they're saving Arsenal money, but not by giving us money. And in fact, if anything, unless someone can guarantee me or prove it otherwise, I'm under the impression, like Shaheen is, that it's a lower interest rate than the bank. So yes, they've done the club a service,
and that may be the case. That may be the case, because
Okay,
I'm not going to make an assumption, but and it will be interesting to see our finance costs next season.
We won't see them. We won't see them.
Oh, of course you will. You'll. I mean, you won't see a breakdown of what they are, but you'll see the finance costs in their next annual report.
This is what we've got now with Kroenke. There's no transparency. They are not going to give us transparent financial statements.
They're filing audited statements every single year.
Of course, but that's just UK company law. But what they did before, in terms of full transparency, that doesn't exist anymore. We don't get to see that now. And
there's no annual meetings anymore or anything like that at all.
And going back to this debt thing, it really pains me that anyone will be under the impression that they're doing us a favor here. They are not putting any money in. They are still taking money out. What I want from an owner is a commitment that I'm not going to profit from the club. Now, what they could, and for me should have done as a biased fan, is that to say, the money you're paying the bank, you can owe it to me, and it'll be interest-free. Then I would have said, you know what, credit to them. I'm not even asking the Kroenkes to put any money in.
You're
Mike, let me finish on this. I'm not even asking them to put any money in. I'm just saying, don't take money out of the club. And by lending Arsenal money, it's a bit of a difficult one. You can look at it both ways, because on one hand, yes, they've saved us some money because it's a lower interest rate, but on the other hand, they're still taking money out of the club. And fine, there's a cost of doing business. There's a cost of financing through interest payments, Mike.
Which you have no evidence that there are.
No, like Shaheen is under the impression, and so am I. At the time that they refinanced, I was under, when I did my research on that, it wasn't interest-free. This is,
Show me anywhere that it says that there's an interest rate on this loan. Because I can't show you anywhere that says that there isn't. But I also have not seen anything that says that there is.
I'm quite confident there is. Whilst you guys are discussing this, I'm going to look it up to see if I can find this.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Shaheen.
Every single other club that has, I mean, and this is the definition of owner investment. I mean, when we look at all right, now's the time I'm going to call for one of these exhibits. Let's look at exhibit number 1.
Right, but sorry, Lev, before you do that,
go ahead, man. Finish
I
off what you were saying.
to finish my point here.
Yeah, please do.
Well, the Kroenkes are still charging Arsenal to borrow money. I think an owner, never mind putting money in, could at least say interest-free. So it depends how critical you want to be of them. The best thing you could say about the Kroenkes is that they've saved Arsenal some money on interest payments because they've given us a lower interest rate. That is the best thing. That's it. That's the best thing you can say about them.
Okay,
they have not put any of their own money into the club. Let me just make this point, please. They have not put any of their own money into the club, because when you say that, the understanding that people have of that is that of giving money. What they're doing, they're acting like flipping, like recently in England, energy costs, utility bills for households were like getting quite high. So the government said, we're going to give people £200. And then it kind of came out that actually you have to pay that back. It's like they're trying to play these games here. This is not giving anyone money. It's lending them money at a more favorable rate of interest. So let's get that absolutely clear. This is not a gift. It's a loan.
So if you loan a club money without an interest rate versus with a 1 or 1.5% interest rate, And again, this is all speculation because no one knows the terms of this loan. So if you loan someone with a 0% interest rate, are you giving the club money?
Well, in effect, I'd say just about yes, because you can't get money for no money. So if they have done it on a 0 interest rate, I would say that's brilliant and credit to them.
So then your entire point about whether they're giving money to the club or not is dependent on an assumption about an interest rate that neither one of us.
No, because it's not an assumption. No. I did my research at the time, and I know that I recall vividly that it was better. The interest rate was better for Arsenal, but it was not interest free.
Yes, I agree with Mo. I'm going to try to find a percentage of it.
Okay. Mike, what did you want me to bring up for you? Do you need something?
Yeah. Let me process what Mo just said though, because I mean, if it money on either side of the ledger, it's either a debit or a credit. If you out of your own doing reduce the amount of outflows for the club, you are not putting your own money in, but does it make a difference in the sense? Okay, so what their refinance has done is ultimately save the club about £26 million a year in interest payments. If it's an interest-free loan, so it might be a slightly smaller number than that if there's a nominal interest rate on it, and it may be a flexible loan that says we don't have to pay this back. It's going to be dependent on financial conditions, but you're saving money. And by refinancing the loan from secured debt to unsecured debt, they also opened up money from the reserves that was previously locked in a box to secure a loan from a bank to be able to be used, which makes it a lot less surprising that we've spent what we spent over the last few years. So had they not done any of that, had they just left the debt as it was, and not all of that debt, I don't believe, was obtained by the Kroenkes. It was assumed by the Kroenkes when they took full control of the club, because the stadium was built well before the stadium was beginning to be built. The money was borrowed way before the Kroenkes took over full ownership. Yeah. So, if they just left the loans the way they were and then just put in $26 million a year, there's no difference in that. It's the same net benefit. So maybe they're taking advantage of liquidity to not have to add $26 million a year of their own money in.
No, but Mike, there is a difference. I'm not denying that what they did was a good decision. It was a good decision in the interest of Arsenal Football Club, because Arsenal will be better off financially as a result. But it's not giving the club money. This is the best thing they've ever done for Arsenal Football Club, charging us lower interest than a bank. That's it. It's not a glowing reference.
Can I just say to those in the chat who've come here wanting us to talk about transfers and this, that, today's show is about the Kroenkes and finances. So if it's too highbrow for you, go and make yourself a tea, go and watch some anime or something. But in the meantime, this is what we're here. We're trying to find out whether the Kroenkes have put money in or not, and to what extent. And I'm quite personally myself, I'm enjoying it. So look, let's crack on with this. So the stadium debts, we're saying that it was almost like a lower level, a lower interest rate loan that Arsenal had to pay back. Mo's saying, although it was a good thing in a sense, we didn't have to pay a lot of money back to a lot of interest back to banks. It's still not putting money back, putting money into the club, is what Mo's saying. So, apart from the stadium debts, what we want to try and find out then, before the show ends, is just how much, if anything,
it doesn't matter what the debts are for. It's just that they're being paid.
They're being paid. All right. So what exactly have they put into this club is what we're trying to find out. And I think, Mike, you've got a few things as well that you want me to help put up for you. So if you need anything at any time, and everyone in the chats as well, this is not a witch hunt. Mike's come here and I know what it's like. I went on Tom's show the other day. Yeah, right?
You're 100% on. And can I add to that? It's not easy to go on a channel and air your view, which is opposite of the majority of people. So a lot of credit and respect to Mike for actually coming on, and he's
Yes.
putting his face. Most of the people who have a go at Mike, you're just sitting at home behind the keyboard. It's really easy to say, "Oh,
Yeah.
Mike this, Mike that," but none of you would actually put your face on, come here and argue your point. So respect to you, Mike, for doing that.
It's not a popular subject matter as well.
It's
You know,
and please,
it's what I assume going in, which is that people are going to reframe this debate about the quality of and the whether the Cronkies are good for the club or not, and that's not the debate.
I think
that
at the
isn't the
beginning of
debate.
the show we established that they're shit owners, and we all agreed. But respect to you, Mike, for coming in here, putting your face on, coming here and arguing your
Yeah,
point.
man, I'm adamant about that.
Still doesn't mean that America will beat Iran in the World Cup. But
Oh my God!
we move on from that.
Shaheen, just be quiet about Iran for a minute. So, okay, so what we're going to try and
I noticed you're not saying anything about England beating Iran in the World Cup, but that's
a given. There's nothing there.
It's coming home, guys.
So, guys, stop, Shaheen, stop taking this off track. Yeah, where are we going with this? Okay, so we're discussing the debts. We discussed the stadium. So go on, Mike. You take it where you want to go.
Let's try to get a definition of owner financing going.
Okay.
I think the biggest trusted person in football finance right now is who?
Swiss Rumble.
Yeah. So let's bring up number one, because this is where a lot of this starts.
Okay.
Is this chart from just over 2 years ago, by the way?
This the one, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if we can pull everyone aside as well. Can we do that, Shaheen, maybe? So
I don't
everyone's
think
not behind this thing.
No, this is just
just leave it like this. All right, go.
No one's paying to look at my face anyway.
No.
So this is a chart that starts a lot of the rage. And what this chart is owner financing from 2010 to 2020. Now there's two things that are wrong with using this as a end all be all to whether Kroenke is spending money or not. One is it goes back to a period that started 8 years before he took full ownership of the club. And there is a big difference, as I'm sure Mo will know, about owning 29% of the club versus 65% of the club versus 75% of the club, which is a magic number to accomplish a lot of things that a business owner will want to do. So, to the constant discussion about, well, 67% they could control and do everything that they wanted to. Well, when the other 30% or 30 of the other 33% are owned by somebody who is your enemy, who's trying to buy you out, who you want to buy out, it's not quite that simple. So let's just for a second, without opening a complete another rabbit hole, distinguish the difference between what could and should have been done by a not 75% owner versus by somebody who owns 100% of the club. And it might explain some of our differences in the transfer market before and after 2018. But this is a chart that's now over 2 years old. It shows Manchester City's massive dump of money into their club, which was almost exclusively 2010 to 2013. It shows the continuation of Roman Abramovich's lending money to the club, admittedly at no interest rate, but lending money to the club that ultimately would come out of the club and come out of his own profits when he sold the club under normal circumstances, which is not what ended up happening.
Okay.
Aston Villa, Everton, Brighton, those are greatly run clubs, massively supported, massively ambitious owners up there. And then Arsenal all the way down at the bottom with 15 million pounds of owner financing over those 10 years. Okay. I see that pointed to a tremendous amount when it comes to, binning Arsenal and binning the Cronkies for their owner financing. Let's go to number two.
Exhibit number two.
By the same definition, where owner financing includes owner loans and equity, which is, equity is the ultimate way of just throwing money at a team. When you throw equity at a team, you are essentially adding money with no expectation of being paid back as debt. You dilute the existing equity that's there. But if you own 100% of the team, you don't care about diluting your share value. You're just essentially lowering your profits when you sell the club, which the Abu Dhabi group is not worried about doing, which Newcastle may end up not worrying about doing, because who cares when you are, when you have the money that those ownership groups have. There's a reason Chelsea didn't, that Roman Abramovich didn't didn't give £2 billion of equity to the club and instead structured it as a loan. There's a reason for that. So
he converted it into equity, though, right?
no.
You're saying Roman Abramovich didn't convert his loan into equity?
Not at the time his assets were frozen. No.
Okay.
No, I mean the outstanding debt to Fordstam, which he controls at the time that his assets were frozen, was something like 1.8 billion pounds, I believe.
In 2009, he turned 340 million pound of debt into equity.
Yeah, and he has 100. I'm not saying he didn't turn any of it into equity. I'm saying he didn't turn all of it into equity.
All right, fine. And how much have the Cronkies turned into equity?
None. Absolutely none. I'm not debating that they haven't added equity to it. But
okay, I just wanted to clarify because
and by the way, when you add equity into a club as a 67% owner, which they were all the way up until 2018, there's the matter of Alisher Usmanov still having a say in that, and so again, it's not like they could have gone out and done what they did quickly. If you can put up 6,
yeah. Would you like to redact anything, Mo? I only learnt that from the court case. So this is 6 now.
All right, all right. That's not legible here. That's the ownership of 8 Premier League clubs dating back to 2007.
Okay.
The thing that and yeah, it's way too small to read.
Yeah,
but
I tried to boost it, but I couldn't.
No,
yeah.
Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Tottenham, all 100% owned or over 85% owned in Tottenham's case by one entity who could control everything that they wanted. They could pass any special resolution that they wanted. They could restructure the debt. They could change the name of the club, which is irrelevant because no one's going to do that. They could issue equity. All of these things from 2007 on under the complete control of those clubs. Arsenal, if you could read it, and I should have had a separate one.
No, I can still you can make it out.
I mean, these are the ownership battles. These are the number of different hands that were in the ownership pot in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, until it straight up became a battle where Kroenke owned 2/3 of the team, red and white, and eventually just Usmanov after Mashiri left owned 30% of the team. So I just say this to say, adding equity and pouring in their own money into the team when you're fighting for ownership of the team, even with a non 75% majority, is not quite as simple or obvious or easy to do as it was for all these other clubs that added equity into the team, such as Manchester City, such as Roman doing $350 million of a $2 billion debt. So, if you go back to 2018, fine. So let's go back to number 2.
We'll go back to number 2. Number 2, here you go.
This is owner financing by the same definition that Swiss Ramble uses it for everything over the past 4 seasons. This adds in 2021. And now you can see that Liverpool's actually taken money out of the club. Oh my God. Manchester United, we know that they take money out of the club. That's no secret. Spurs taking money out of the club. Southampton taking money out of the club. Now the top owner financing, if we're thinking that owner financing is a good thing, if it's a sign of strength from ownership, all of a sudden we're seeing the incredibly run clubs of Everton, Aston Villa, Fulham, and we already know about Chelsea up there at the top of the list with 211 million pounds of owner financing, which include owner debt and equity. So we can debate whether the debt's at 0% interest, which is somehow giving the club money, versus 2% interest, which is somehow taking money from the club. But all of Everton and Villa's and Fulham's debt and a considerable amount of the other teams' owner debt was to pay off and refinance existing debt. So I just don't see how we can have our definition, both ways, so that it either, criticizes the Cronkies when they're not putting in debt and criticizes the Cronkies when they are putting debt. Yeah. So
to set it straight then, Mike, what you're actually saying, and I didn't know some of this, so this is really, really interesting stuff for me. So there was a lot of stuff going on in the background, unlike other clubs. You're saying that when they first came, look where they were and look where they are now is kind of your argument, right? Am I right in saying that?
Well, I'm saying you have to draw a line at August of 2018 between what the rationale and the benefit and the outcomes of certain options that the Cronkies would have had to put in money before and after that date. Because it is not as simple as saying, well, Man City put in money repeatedly. Moshiri's put money into Everton repeatedly because to cover their losses. You just can't do that with the same expectation of an outcome when you are not in a consortium, when you own less than 75% of a business, and the person that's keeping you from owning the business wants to buy you out and get you out of the club.
Okay. Mo, you've heard what Mike's had to say and, his reasoning behind it.
Mike is talking fairly in very business terms, and what someone would do if they go and acquire, flipping a bakery or a bowling alley or whatever. It's just business. Doesn't care for passion, doesn't care for fans, doesn't care for competition, success, glory. It's just business. That's what Mike's talking about. It doesn't matter what you're selling, what the product is. And the difference here is that when you're a fan, you don't look at it like that. You look at it in the sense of glory, with the lens of glory, with the lens of passion. So Mike's point is based on the fact that, and I completely agree with him here, that if you're looking at it from a business point of view, unless you are the majority or total owner, why would you put your own money into something that someone else is going to benefit from? Because it seems a bit unfair, doesn't it? If me and Mike are 50-50 in a business and I say, I really want this business to succeed, here's £10,000, and Mike's like, oh, thanks. He'll benefit from the success that £10,000 yields, yet he's not putting anything in. So I might feel like, why am I doing this? I'm a mug. But that's what fans are. Fans are mugs. And in 2009, Alisher Usmanov offered to inject £60 million of money, of his own money, into the club. Why is that? Because he had some desire to succeed, because he's a fan, because he's a mug. As a fan, he wanted to reduce the debt, free up cash, and give the transfer kitty a bit of a boost.
God, I wish that had happened. Oh,
it never happened.
No, I wish it
happened.
I wish Usmanov had won that battle. We'd be in great shape right now.
It never happened. Right, okay, but, so there is an example, and not like a very distant example. This is our club. This is Arsenal. If Kroenke can't do that when Usmanov is there, how is it that Usmanov was able to do that when Kroenke was there? So this is a very, very clear example that flies in the face of the very sensible view that Mike is putting forward in terms of how someone operates when it's a business. And this is the exact bugbear that people have with Stan Kroenke. The fact that Arsenal's just business to him. There is no ambition or passion that makes him act in a way that conveys any desperation or true desire for success beyond, what seems to be success just purely on a business basis. So I want someone
I agree with you 1,000% on that.
I want someone like Usmanov, who's actually willing to say, I don't care if someone else is benefiting from the fact that I'm putting money in the club. I just want Arsenal to do well. And that's what I want to see from Stan Kroenke. The fact that he's never done that, he's never put any money into the club, is a frustration for me, but not my biggest criticism. My biggest criticism is that he's taken money out of the club and he's run this club in an absent, rudderless fashion since he's been there. And as I said at the start of the show, the league performances, the league finishes are there, fully correlated to display that.
Do you feel, and this is getting into a slightly different topic, but do you feel that there is an attempt being made to get back to where we need to be? Or do you not feel that way?
No.
I
don't.
Not enough, Mike, in all honesty. If you look at, again,
what would be enough? Basically going the Chelsea and Manchester City route?
No, not at all. No, that's not what I want from us. I take a lot of pride in doing things in a more sustainable manner. But the culture is set from the top. When you look at what we did in the January transfer window, we sat here, me, Shaheen, Lev, along with Tom Canton, and we sat here and we spoke about the fact that they're showing no ambition and gambling our season away. A hugely important time to twist the knife into Tottenham, to really hasten the departures of Son and Kane, world-class players, departure of Conte, a world-class manager, to look at the club and this competition with a true lens of passion and fandom, and kind of say, we need to make something happen here. We need to take an ambitious stance here. That comes from the top. There was zero veto power from the Cronkies to say, no, I'm not going to allow nothing to happen. And what happened? We gambled our season away, and now Tottenham, unfortunately, are in a position of strength compared to Arsenal.
We could have killed them off.
Can I come into that as well?
Yes, go on, Shaheen.
Yeah, can I come into that as well, Mike? I don't agree with what you're saying, and I don't think efforts being made to get Arsenal back to winning ways. Because if you look at, when Kroenke took over from Arsenal, you could argue that they don't probably understand Premier League football as well as they should. And over the years, I feel that they have made zero effort to understand it, because they still don't. People that they have recruited, and I'm sure you agree with me on this one, to run the club on their behalf are not experienced enough, connected enough, and knowledgeable enough. If you look at, Vinay, the background he's got, he's always been in commercial banking sort of stuff. Now he's got a higher up position. Edu, coordinator for Brazilian national team, out of a sudden director of football Arsenal. Mikel Arteta, not one game of Premier League experience, manages Arsenal Football Club. So as an owner, when you're accepting that one, when you're allowing this to happen, I mean, if I was to take over an American football team, I don't know nothing about American football team, but if somebody that works that comes and tells me, listen, there is one guy that he's got no experience, not even one game experience of management, we want to get him in and run the thing. You mean
the coach that just won the Super Bowl with them? Because that's what.
As I said, my knowledge of American football is extremely limited. So even if he has,
Mike's saying he's hired that coach, right?
Let me finish what I was saying. Let me finish what I was saying, right? So for me as an owner at the time, Mike, right? I would look at this and I think, how's this guy with no experience going to come in and sort this out? I'd rather somebody with experience comes in. Now, you telling me, I'm assuming that somebody with no experience has come in and won the Super Bowl with them. So,
well, he built a team that eventually
won. They've taken a risk. Taken a risk. It's worked, right? Good luck to them. They've taken the same risk at Arsenal. It hasn't really worked, but we're still sticking to this, right?
Because I don't think it could be said that it hasn't worked, because we're not there yet. Let's not get into
that, because that's not about the Arteta thing. It's about Kroenke. Another big criticism I have of the Mike is the number of contracts and the players that they are okay and they approve for them for the contract to be written off and the player to be moved on, and with zero business sense. And I mean, I go back to the likes of Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Ramsey, Sanchez, who else? Socrates, Mustafi. You could argue that, the manager didn't want them to be around. They were causing problem. They were disruptive. All of these arguments that I've heard. But still, from an owner's point of view, now we're talking, it's not from a footballing point of view. From an owner's point of view, I would look at this and I'll go, we've written off more than £200 million worth of transfer for free. Whereas we could have got at least, we could have maybe got rid of some of them for 5, 6, 7, 8 million pounds, even anything that would come back in. So that's another thing that is a bit questionable for me when it comes to
correcting mistakes hurts.
At what cost, Mike? At what cost? And then when we try to sign a player, we're told we don't have enough money.
So should you continue to throw good money after bad? I mean, I did a pre-recorded show, and I had no intention of promoting it here, but it addresses exactly what you've addresses exactly what you've just said, which is it's on our channel called I mean, it's stupid, but Magic Mike shows you the money, because everyone's asking about, why are we, how are we spending all this money in the transfer market? And that's when it was like Rafinha was looking likely. I mean, let's see how it pans out. There's 8 weeks left, but when you're restructuring a house where the foundation of the house has been rotted beyond belief, you actually dig into the ground and you see termites and you see rotten wood and you see all this stuff that wasn't really apparent above ground. And here in the States, we have houses that have basements and go underground and stuff. So, you know, when you find out how bad the rot is, sometimes you have to completely rebuild, restructure, and put a lot of money into doing that, or sacrifice a lot of money in doing that to get things back to where they need to be. So
100% agree with you. But when they took over, it wasn't rotting.
Exactly.
When they took over,
it absolutely
we were beating Real Madrid away at Bernabeu. We were beating the likes of Inter Milan, prime Inter Milan away, AC Milan away. It was not.
You're defining that by 2009.
It started rotting with them. You know, and they are part of all of these decisions that has been made. How can you allow yourself? I mean, maybe it's me. How can you?
He's woken up all of a sudden
for 40 million pounds in Mesut Ozil, 42 million pounds, and then give him a contract of 300,000 pounds a week, and then because your manager, who happens to be inexperienced, and we'll leave that for another day, says, "Oh, there's a problem," or he comes out with a comment, you freeze him out, you keep paying him, and then you just write off the whole thing. That, you know, I'm now sitting here thinking,
how did our season go after he left?
Where does the sense in that?
How did our season go after Ozil left in 2020?
Well, I'm talking from a business point of view, Mike. I'm not talking about the football.
Well, I thought from an Arsenal supporter,
Aubameyang is another example.
I thought how can an owner care about business because we just want the club to succeed.
No. It's just, look, we're looking at these guys from the owner's point of view and the finances. And how is it that they accept these loss of monies, Mike? That's one of my questions.
Because it is the only way for this club to.
Is it? Could we not get anything for Aubameyang, Socrates, Mustafi? Could we not get any? Next one down is Bellerin.
Who was offering to pay us for Aubameyang in January of last year?
I don't know, man. I just think sometimes if you've got people as a director of football and people who connected, they know what they're doing, they know their business. Yeah. Surely you could have got something for Aubameyang from somebody. Aubameyang is not a Mickey Mouse player; he's a goal scorer.
Can I just say that it's not a niche opinion that Arsenal have made this error on multiple occasions. Arsenal fans and non-Arsenal fans, you know, the best pundits, the worst pundits will all tell you that. This is not, you know, kind of a weird stance to take. It's not a conspiracy or anything, you know.
Arsenal's continually.
There are massive flaws. There are massive flaws. Also, when you look at our commercial revenue growth, for example, it's not up to scratch over the years compared to our peers. It's another massive flaw. That under the Kroenke leadership, I do not think that they've created a culture of real excellence where there's a lot of lateral thinking coming out of our club, where there's a culture of real high performance. It's not a surprise that we have been willing to recruit rookies, you know, in certain roles. And it's not a surprise also that these people have already got a pre-existing connection to the club. These appointments seem to be led more out of convenience than a desire to be the very, very best. Josh Kroenke connected to his dad. Arteta and Edu connected by their previous association with the club. Per Mertesacker. Now, I'm not saying I don't like these guys. I'm not saying these guys can't be successful. But I think clearly it starts to paint a picture that the leadership right from the top, right from the owner, are not out there doing an exercise, conducting that exercise to say, we only want the very, very best. It's not a culture that puts success above everything. And to be fair, you know, if you're going to go and put success above everything in the way Chelsea did, it's not the culture that I want, but we're far from achieving that optimal balance in terms of having a culture that will guide us to success versus this rudderless, aimless, absent ownership that we've experienced and suffered at the hands of the Kroenkes since they took over.
Well, and I would agree with you up until 3 years ago, where
what changed, Mike, in the last 3 years. They had the opportunity then. You know, you mentioned that it's not easy to stuff money into a club when you're not the full owner, and I agree with you on that. Even though I gave you an example of someone who did that when they only had 25% shares, they were willing to go and give 60 million. I agree with you on that. But since he has become owner, he had the option to refinance. Has he taken it and come out and said, there you go, equity? He hasn't. Not that he has to, but he could have by your by your logic, and he hasn't.
Well,
So
sure,
what
he
has
could
he
have.
done in the last 3 years that all of a sudden has done anything to change our minds about him?
Good question.
Of course, he could have put in equity in the club, but it up until about 6 months ago, interest rates were. I mean, borrowing money is not a sign of weakness. Borrowing money is not a sign of not having money. Borrowing money or lending money is a sign of taking advantage of an interest rate environment when holding on to the money you'd otherwise have to put in as equity. You think you're going to have a greater rate of return on. I mean, you know that if you can borrow money at 2.9%. And you think keeping your money in your bank account or in another investment can earn you 5.9%, you borrow the money.
Yeah, sure.
And
but listen,
and you ride the difference. So,
but Mike, you know what you're saying here is one number's bigger than the other. It's you know, I'm not being funny, but if I want to borrow some money from the three of you, and Lev says I'll charge you 5%, Shane says I'll charge you 2.5, and you say, you know what, Mo, you can have it, just pay me back when you can. I'm coming to you every day, Mike. So ultimately, it is money that leaves us. It's money that goes off our bottom line that we can't therefore spend on players or anything else associated to the club because it's going to the lender. And that lender happens to be Stan Kroenke. The least he could have done was make it interest-free, if not, actually inject some money into the club. When we have the conversation about the worst things that he has done, there's a list of pretty bad moves. When we have a conversation about the best things that he's done, I mean, that list is really not exactly worth writing about. So I think it's
I don't disagree with you.
The other thing that I'd say is that when you often, I think this really helps provide clarity to people when you're doing a comparison or trying to appraise someone. And we do this with players a lot. So we say Virgil van Dijk, for example, how many of the other 19 clubs would take him if he was available? Like, forget money and realistic or this or that. If someone said, you know what, Virgil van Dijk's on a free, and you can afford his wages. Arsenal, do you want him? Yes. The other 18 clubs? Yes. Arsenal plus 18, 19 clubs would say, yes, we'll take Virgil van Dijk. Same for Kevin De Bruyne. Now, when you go to owners, for example, how many fans of other clubs would say, yeah, I'll take Kroenke? You're not ever going to hear that. Yes, Kroenke's better than the Glazers, but ultimately, there's many, many owners that are better, that are more passionate. I look at the Leicester owners as an example.
Leicester owners are some of the best owners in sports anywhere in the world. There's no question about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just giving an example.
With what they have, they are. I mean, they're in touch with the community. I mean, look.
That's a great.
I'm not claiming the Kroenkes are great owners. Again, I'm saying that
but
in the narrow
point that you've made about in touch. You just mentioned the word in touch. Yeah. And this is my issue with the Kroenkes. Never mind them injecting some money into the club. I would rather have an owner that said, no, I'm not putting any money in, because we wouldn't be any worse off than where we are with Kroenkes. But if an owner came out explicitly and said, I'm never going to put money into the club, but he was in touch, he cared, he was passionate, he didn't just sell us out for this stupid Super League thing. That's what I want in an owner, someone engaged, and that's someone that I feel like I can trust, that was transparent. They didn't just chuck their son in there because they know that nepotism isn't the right thing to do, that actually values meritocracy. And we saw the opposite side of that when it's trying to take the meritocracy out of things for the Super League. I want an owner that gets English football, that gets this industry that we operate in, and gets what's important to the fans. Stan Kroenke has never, ever got it. He's out of touch.
Who's that then?
Well, listen, when Daniel Ek comes up to the club and he's working with Henri, Vieira, and Bergkamp, to me, that sounds like a much better proposition because there's some accountability there. There's people that genuinely care about the club. Do you think Thierry Henry is going to want to ruin his legacy? Vieira and Bergkamp are going to want to ruin their legacy. So there's one option for you. I mean, Usmanov, I'm not saying that he's the greatest person in the world, but I'd rather have had Usmanov than Abramovich at the time. I don't know about Usmanov and his links and how he's made his fortune as such, and whether it is done in a Abramovich-esque way or not. But in terms of just passion, that's what I'm talking about here. I'd rather it was fan-owned. Give me a 50+1 model. I don't want Kroenkes.
I don't want Kroenkes either.
What we trying to find
I'm not here to argue that.
Have they put in any money, though? That's what everyone wants to know. Have they put in any money to this club? My issue with them is the clarity and direction. Mo was talking about it a little bit as well. Clarity
But I
of
think
direction.
we're all in agreement. Let's be fair to Mike. We're all in agreement in terms of the clarity, ambition, direction. So there's no argument here.
Yeah.
But just in terms of money, the answer for me, the conclusion to this podcast, have Arsenal received money that they do not have to pay back? Actually being given money from the Cronkies? No. The truth is quite the opposite. Arsenal have actually paid money out to the Cronkies over the years in terms of consultancy fees and interest payments.
I mean, last time I checked the company's house account, the last ones that was made public, I think they took out £3 million for consultation fee.
Yeah.
And I just, the first question that came to my mind was, what actually have you consulted us on? Because your knowledge of Premier League football is limited.
That was 8 years ago. That wasn't the last financial account. That was 8 years ago. And again, that's
the last time I checked. I haven't checked after that. I don't know what has been said. I mean, since they took fully over, I haven't even bothered to look on that. But even that at the time,
well, they're still being posted. The company's
what have you done to consult us, because we haven't really made progress.
Yeah. So ultimately, they did that on 2 or 3 occasions, and I sat in front of Ivan Zenit, and I looked him in the eye, and I said to him myself that this is, basically, I said, if I were HMRC, I'd be looking into this because this is a faux dividend. He's simply trying to extract money out of the club with a BS business expense, so he doesn't have to pay Alisher Usmanov an equivalent dividend based on ownership. Yeah. And it's a disgrace that Arsenal are being treated like that. That I want Arsenal to be run in a proper way, in a respectable manner. And the fact that Kroenke was so brazenly doing things like that, getting himself faux dividends for consultancy fees. Why on earth would Arsenal consult you? And are we idiotic enough to believe we never thought of consulting him before, but when he became an owner, all of a sudden we want to consult him? How many other football clubs on the planet went to Stan Kroenke for consultancy? Tell me that. And I think it starts to paint the picture. This was a convenient faux transaction. It was. And it's something that happens at other football clubs as well. That's the bottom line.
Go on, Mike.
Guys,
let Mike finish. Let Mike finish.
Sorry, Mike. Go on.
Go on. I mean, in the measure of consistency, I pointed that out without being prompted to point that out earlier. And I guess it comes down to this: we are in the situation we're in now, and the reason we're in the situation we're in now comes down to a rotting foundation that the Cronkies allowed to rot under them. They did some things wrong, and the biggest thing that they did wrong, in my opinion, was to not pay attention, because they were so happy while they were fighting with Usmanov for ownership to get that Champions League money every year, that they gave way too much power and way too little attention to what Arsene Wenger was doing. And I'm not trying to criminalize Arsene Wenger for anything. I just think that the entire running of the team of the club got away from him in the last 4 or 5 years of his stewardship of the club, with more power than he ever should have been given. That is the Cronkies' fault. However, at what point do we not take notice and start trying to understand what measures are being taken to fix previous mistakes? If we want to pass a verdict on the Cronkies' ownership, partial ownership from 2009 to 18 and full ownership from 2018 to 21, he's guilty. He's done. If we're here to pass judgment and say, has he done a good job for Arsenal over the past, let's call it 14 years? The answer is no. But my question, and the one I'm interested in trying to ask and to try to be objective about, and to try to take some of the emotion out of that dates back to 2007, and for me back to 1988, is, are they trying to fix it? And how are they trying to fix it? Because you can keep making mistakes, and I'd say there's 2 rounds of mistakes that were made in 2014 to 2018, and then another round from 2018 to 2020. Are they trying to fix it? And we're not going to have the answer to that in definitive terms for another 2 or 3 years. Sorry, but to those impatient that don't believe in the process or anything like that. But to me, what I'm seeing is an ownership group that, rather than running from adversity, rather than just brazenly continuing to make the same mistakes over and over again. They are attempting to change the culture with better advice from Arsenal and football people than they've had in the past. They are attempting to change the wage structure, which they've done an incredible job of. Go to the Show Me the Money video to understand a little bit more about how that works, because transfer fees are not the only part of the discussion. They are attempting to do something that has worked for them in the US, and if it doesn't work here, because I agree, it is not the same as US. You don't run a football club the same way that you run a sports franchise in the United States. I get that, but they have had a measure of success trying to build a long-term infrastructure using younger talent, using club legends in the position of making decisions, using unproven people who have been at the highest levels of assisting other managers and coaches who have been strong. That's basically the model they used for the Avalanche and the Rams.
One minute.
It may not work for
Mike.
Arsenal. It may not be good enough for Arsenal, but I think that they're trying.
Mike, everyone's trying. They're going to try because it will fill their pockets. I feel like they're not going to try to win Arsenal trophies. They're going to try and turn us around for their own interest. I've never seen any desire or passion to win us trophies. The fact of the matter is, everyone tries. Yes, they're trying. Trying isn't good enough. This is a clinical sort of industry where simply trying, I'm sorry, but none of us as fans say, oh, Rob Holding, he tried. No, you've just got to be better, and they're not good enough. They're not up to scratch.
Guys, I'm conscious of time. It's like an hour, almost an hour and a half. Mo needs to go. He's got his little, and Mike's out in America. I've got things to do as well. It seems like this subject matter could go on and on. Shaheen, anything you want to say?
I just want to, Mo, do you want to go? Because I want to talk to Mike about something. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Listen, I need to head off.
Thank you so much, man.
My pleasure. Mike, thank you very much for doing it anyway.
I know you over the last few weeks. I respect your opinion and your ability to have a debate without getting personal.
Man, absolutely. And always good-natured. Always good-natured. So listen, take care and we'll catch up soon.
Bless, Mo. Thank you, man.
Thank you. I just want to say respect to both of you, Mike and Mo, for coming on and discussing this. These things are not easy. People think it's easy to go on a channel.
I didn't understand half of it.
So respect to you both. And this Kroenke debate is one that we can talk all night about it.
It'll go on, won't it?
And Mo is gone. Towards the end of the show, I just want to touch on something with Mike that he brought to my attention. I didn't even know. And I see a lot of people write in the comments about it, and I just Googled it as well. What's this thing about Thomas Partey, man? Apparently, it's come on the news. Apparently, it's Thomas Partey. There's a player
that's not been in training today as well. Mike hit us with this earlier on, didn't he?
There's essentially a 29-year-old footballer who was arrested or was arrested early this morning, or detained early this morning. I don't know the terminology over there. For an alleged rape or sexual assault that happened in June in Barnet, and everybody starts looking at club rosters to see who's 29, and we've got two 29-year-olds, Xhaka and Partey. There's a tremendous amount of concern that it might be Partey, but I should say,
not Tom. Mike, who says he's from Arsenal?
I should say, first of all, that the concern is with the person. If in fact there was a sexual assault,
I thought is with the person who's been alleged victim.
If it is an Arsenal player and they're guilty of it, that player has to be gone, no matter who they are. I'm not.
Why people assume it's Thomas Partey? I mean, look, you got Chelsea, Tottenham, Fulham, Arsenal, Brentford.
Some are saying he wasn't in training, and some are saying he was. So I'm not really sure.
There are connections. There's a connection to Barnet that Thomas Partey has, but he's not the only person that has a connection to Barnet. Look, I'm going off.
Arsenal players live in Barnet area. I mean, Barnet is a quite large area. Tottenham players live there. Again,
Basuma's moved to Barnet, maybe.
Well, he's not 29 though.
No, but I'm puzzled. There's a lot why of the name.
What makes me a little worried?
Like, why Thomas Partey's name has come up? There could be. I mean, all of these clubs that I mentioned, they've got 29-year-old players.
Well, we've got to look at how many 29-year-olds we have.
Huh?
How many do we have in our squad that are 29?
Yeah, but why even Arsenal? Could it be a Tottenham player? Could it be a Chelsea player? I mean, they could live in North London. The Tottenham players live in North London. Could be Brentford. Could be, I don't know, Fulham.
Well, the reason I believe people are concerned that it's Partey is not just based on the fact that he plays for a North London club and is 29. I believe that there are other reasons that there are some concern. I don't know how legitimate they are, and I'm not going to go into it.
Yeah.
And I do not think, as many people have said, that this is a situation where everyone's just assuming it's Partey for a nefarious, lazy.
I don't know where that name's come from. A few people are saying, Mike. A few people are saying it could be an English. It's an English international. Apparently, it's an English international.
Well, apparently, it's an English international because it supposedly happened over the international break when a lot of non-English internationals would have been gone. My only concern is that I know somebody who I know for a fact knows. This is going to sound like ridiculous, but I know somebody who's very trustworthy, who knows a very close person to Thomas Partey. They're in communication regularly, and basically reached out and said, what have you heard? Please, I feel sick to my stomach. Please help me feel better. I'm like, aren't you mates with somebody who knows Thomas Partey? And he's like, oh, you mean my mate who I texted earlier and hasn't texted me back, even though he normally texts me back right away.
So we don't know, but we
no, we
don't
know, but
hope not.
My hope was to get some sort of confirmation the other way.
That is not him.
Yeah, like I know what you're talking about, and it has nothing to do with him, because I would take that as fact, knowing where the source came from. But instead, it's, well, I haven't heard back from this person, and they normally get back to me pretty quickly. So that is what makes me a little bit more worried. But again, it's just because I don't want this situation to be what it could have been.
With everything that has been
so badly for there not to have been an assault. And if there was an assault, it's a terrible thing. I want it to not be someone who I put my love and faith into every weekend.
I'm sure it's not him.
I mean,
with everything that has been going on and a bit of a shitty transfer window so far, it's
he's having you.
It's the last thing we need to be around any club.
Oh yeah, it's just a bad thing altogether, and it just gave me this really queasy, uneasy feeling. Until and unless I know that it's not an Arsenal player, because again, I will be disappointed. It's not that I'm worried that he won't play. I mean, obviously, if it was an injury, he wouldn't play. If it was a transfer, he wouldn't play. This would be a reason that would just truly and deeply upset me.
I'm just looking at some of the things that people are saying in here. Someone saying he's ginger and white. It's definitely not him. And someone, look, it's not a laughing matter when someone gets assaulted. And as Mike rightly said, I hope the victim is okay. And is.
And I'm not speculating that it's Partey. I'm addressing the speculation.
A few people in the chats were doing it though. Look, Mike, in your defense, after you mentioned the rumors, and you didn't say it was Partey in your defense. A few people in the chat's actually been saying, have you heard about Partey? Have you heard about Partey?
Well,
so I don't know where they've heard that from. That would be interesting to know where they've heard that.
It's Twitter buzz, and Twitter buzz has a way of either being completely off base or where there's smoke, there's fire, and you just don't know which one of those it is at the point. And because of everyone's concern of how important Thomas Partey is to the football club if he's healthy and not a criminal, as goes for any of our players, but I'm just saying Partey is a very important part of our team.
Yeah, of course.
That's obviously got people worrying and speculating, and until something definitive comes out, it's going to be. This is what it's going to be.
Yeah,
I am not speculating that it's him. I'm just addressing other people's speculation.
No, sure. And listen, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure having you on. I hope that people didn't give you a hard time on the comments, but as I said, it's not easy to come up and have a debate, especially with Mo. I've experienced it myself. It's not easy having a debate with Mo, period.
I don't mind having a debate, just not with numbers. I knew
what I was getting into. I mean, I wasn't debating, some schmo who was just going to keep going back to, well, Kroenke's an asshole. I knew he'd have numbers, and it's just that I think a lot of people don't understand nuance. Nuance is one of my favorite words, because I try to find nuance wherever I can. And nuance is the ability to focus on something without being overwhelmed by all of the other things that might affect it. It's the type of thing that when you're in a court of law, for example, which Arsenal Football Club fan base is not a court of law, but when you're in a court of law, you're dealing with facts and specific elements of what is and isn't being judged. You're not dealing with how you feel about a person or how you feel about a situation. You're dealing about, did this happen or did this not happen? And so, when I try to kind of isolate on one thing and do it objectively, that's not for everybody. And I get
Mike,
that.
listen, I totally appreciate it. And as I said, I went on Tom's channel a few days back, and I knew I was walking into a predominantly sort of pro Tom channel, right? But I mean, firstly, a lot more people would welcome me than I expected. Secondly, a lot of these guys, thank you in the chat. A lot of these guys came over and had my back, and I remember all of you that were there. Thank you so much. But look, Mike, I have 100% respect for you doing what you did coming on here. Yeah, you knew it was going to be a difficult one, mate. I knew it was going to be a difficult one for you. And let's be honest, the preconceptions were already there when it comes to the Kroenke. So you already...
Of course they are. And what I enjoyed being able to do, and I spent way too much time doing it, is kind of preparing for this, because I learn more and more about the club every day. Some of it makes me angry. Some of it makes me hopeful. Some of it makes me say, they're throwing the dice for the third time. It better as hell work out this time. But you learn more about the club, and ultimately, I think it's good to be knowledgeable.
And it's good to have these debates as well, Mike. Like, what's happened to the days? Yeah, what's happened to the days where fans can sit in a pub and talk about things and disagree, but when it's kickoff time, we're all part of the same fan base, and we want this to continue. We want people to be able to. We want to encourage debate in a way that people can have debates and not get chastised or treated like crap or abused, and learn to do this again. This is what we want, and it's brilliant that you was willing to do it. I'm still willing to do it. The Canton holics are in here. Thank you for visiting us as well. I don't know who. Why would you even want to be called a Canton holic, man?
Is that a thing?
If someone even come to me with a leather and said I'm a leather holic, I'd be like, have a word to yourself. Give your head a wobble. Like, come on. Like, hey, listen, but Shaheen, we've been dragging this on.
You got to call them loungies.
We're gonna call it.
By the way, I'm sorry, my apologies. I forgot to say this earlier to you. Happy 4th of July as well. I know it's a holiday for you guys.
Yes, happy 4th of July.
I hope you have a wonderful time with your family. And again,
Iran's still going to beat them.
Thank you for giving us your time on a national holiday, man. Much appreciated. And it's always a pleasure having you on.
When are we going to see you on our channel?
Do you want to tell people?
It's only fair. He's come here. Give him a date for the channel for his show now, Shaheen. Come on now.
You got
to come to me.
So I'm free whenever. I'm free whenever.
Thursday's available sometime next week, but then I'm off to Baltimore to support the mighty Arsenal.
First of all, Mike, do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah.
Good shout, Shaheen.
Thank you very much. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Gooners Pod. And from there, you'll get all the details about how to watch our podcast. Our podcast is not a pro Kroenke podcast every minute of every day. It's actually quite entertaining. We just act a fool, love the club, have interesting guests on to listen to. We're going to have Kaya Kainak from football.london on tomorrow night, and a couple other great guests this week. Also, please follow Gooners v Cancer at Gooners v Cancer. It's a charity that we run to try to help fight blood cancers. We've just raised tens of thousands of dollars giving away a great shirt signed by all the Anfield 89 stars of that game. And there's always fun stuff going on, including a FIFA tournament on PlayStation and Xbox that you can find out. So just follow Gooners v Cancer and at the Gooners Pod. And thanks, Shaheen, and the late Lev.
His phone, his camera's battery ran out. So
I'm still here, yeah. Look, representing the rainbows, yeah.
It's just voice. It's just the voice.
This is
but no, Mike.
Pride Month.
Yeah, listen, again, thank you for coming on. We've been doing this for about 1 hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to let you go enjoy your time with your family. I need to go have dinner and sleep. Again, respect to you for coming on and having the debate. And we'll definitely arrange a date. Me and Lev will come over to yours. And I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic show. I'm going to let you have the last word on this before we call it a day.
Well, just look forward to having you and Lev on, and all the loungeaholics are welcome to come into the Gooners podcast. I don't ban people for having opinions. I would only ban somebody for spam and annoyance. So come over and check us out, and happy 4th of July to everybody else. I'm pretty sure I'm probably the only American in this room.
Yeah,
but
just before we go, do you want to have a little prediction? Iran versus America? It's just me and you, Mike. There's nobody around. Just me and you. Nobody's watching.
For Iran and America?
Yeah.
When is that? Is that the first game or the third game? I know England, America's the second.
Second game for Iran, I think.
Well, the second game is U.S. and England. So it's either the first or the third game. I'm going to go with a 1-1.
You go 1-1. I think
That's
we'll edge it, isn't it? I think we'll edge a 2-1 Iran. I think we're more suited in the climate to play, and I think. But that game is just. These games are such interesting games. There's so much around the game. Is not just about a game of football, and it's a good opportunity, Mike, for people to come together, for everybody to see that people don't have problem with each other. It's the others, it's other power. But anyway, thank you very much for coming on, man. I'll let you go and enjoy your wonderful 4th of July. Guys, please subscribe to Arsenal Lounge, subscribe to the Gooners podcast. Thank you for giving us your time. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you guys soon.